Technology. Focus on Liberia uncovers and showcases the best of Liberia and shows the world the truth about Liberia. We educate, elevate, and promote all things Liberia. We conduct interviews, panel discussions, debates, and more. Tune in to Focus on Liberia on Facebook and YouTube and be a part of the stories that make up the news.
This is Focus on Liberia, and I am Dennis Jah.
Welcome, ladies and gentlemen. It's a beautiful Sunday afternoon. If you're anywhere in the West, it's winter, so I hope you're keeping safe. We're here to do our final edition of non-for-profit leadership and community building as part of the Liberian Dream. So we'll be reviewing some of the things we've talked about, but also we will be making the point that we need to diversify what leadership in Liberia looks like. We've consistently continued to drive all of our young people into this corrupt, distorted politics and making young people to feel like the only way you can be relevant in Liberia is to participate in that. Let me break the news to you. Not all young leaders in Liberia need to participate in politics. In fact, the political institutions of our country should be lean. They're supposed to be, the sector should be small. We need young people in the business sector, in the non-for-profit sector, in the religious sector, everywhere. We need leaders. We need to cultivate leaders. We don't only need to cultivate politicians. Unfortunately, all of our focus have been on cultivating politicians only. And the politics of the day is very corrupt. So as a result, we find ourselves in this place where we have the gift of so many young people, but then the curse of not having anything to give them, so they have to figure out how to survive. So you remember I talked about a few things. When I talk about community building and nonprofit leadership, the first thing I talk about was understanding how to build a vision and mission. And first of all, let me just break this to you. There's a lot of money to be raised. A lot of money in the nonprofit sector. For those of you who run civil society organizations in Liberia who are interested in running nonprofits, let me break it to you. You can raise way more money, 3 times more than any politician can ever raise. I'm speaking to you as a direct testimony of that, in terms of how much money I have been able to raise for projects in Liberia and projects here in Canada as well. So let me break it to you. And the good thing is, you don't have to go through the corrupt practices to raise that money. You don't have to sleep with somebody to get that money. And this is what we see in the political arena. If you're not sleeping with the right person, you're not from the right family, you're not in bed with the right crooks or whatever that is, you can't get anything. So let's shift the conversation a little bit to where it should be, in my opinion. Right? The first thing we need to do, we need to understand, what do you want to do? And we talked about that a little bit. What do you want to do? What is that vision and that mission of what you want to accomplish? And there's a difference to them, right? Your vision, and welcome, my brother Anthony. Good to see you. Welcome to your broadcast here.
It's good to be here.
Yeah. So the first thing you want to do, you want to figure out what you want to do. And once you figure out what do you want to do, you ask yourself, how do you want to actually do it? And this is why this afternoon we'll be having an interactive conversation, Anthony and I, around what does this mean for our country? I told everybody the 2023 elections is already a foregone conclusion. I care less who you elect. It's going to be a tough ride. Where Liberia is going to take us at least 30 to 50 years of consistent effort of building all of our sectors, education, health, nonprofit, religious, all of them combined for us to be able to get ourselves out of this mess that we find ourselves in. No president is going to wave a magic wand. Even Jesus Christ become president for Liberia in 2023, Jesus Christ will struggle. So I have realized that those of you who even want to go into politics and leadership, the nonprofit sector is actually a powerful place to learn some important lessons. The first thing you learn is how to fundraise, which is the problem in Liberia. Everybody wouldn't know how to spend money. Nobody knows how to raise money. Everybody got project under their arms that you should spend money for, but nobody can tell you how to raise it. Number one, you learn expert fundraising skills that you don't have to sleep in bed with anybody. You don't have to be in the pockets of any crook to generate the revenue that you need. That's one you learn. Number two, you learn accountability. In the nonprofit sector, you have to account for the dollars that you raise, especially if you're doing it properly. Number three, you learn how to troubleshoot. There is no playbook in the nonprofit sector. You're going to have to think it through, and you have to do the work. If you don't do the work, you will not get the results. It's not a politics where you can just be a big mouth and give all the excuses why you can't do your work. If you can't do it, you cannot get it. So those are a few things I want us to review. I'm just giving you a highlight that if you have to ask yourself, what do you do well? If the political arena is so corrupt and so twisted that you can find a space, that the space has been cluttered up for you, no way to get there, find something. But I'll turn it to Anthony and let him do his opening here as well to actually chime in.
All right, Leo. Thanks, and it's good to be joining you on the Liberian Dream. You are concluding today your presentation on nonprofit leadership and community building. Leo, I'll be asking a lot of questions. That is what I try to do. Why nonprofit leadership and community building should be the emphasis? Because that's what I'm, surmising here. You are saying, hey, this is where the focus should be if we want to build leaders in Liberia, if we want to build our communities, that's where this focus should be. And I'm asking the question, why?
Thank you very much, Anthony, for that question. Number one, the overwhelming problems we've created in our country as a result of the war, as a result of years of decay and poverty, politics cannot resolve it. Now, don't get me wrong. I'm not saying we don't need the political side to get better. No, you need it. You need government. There are just certain things we cannot do in the nonprofit sector. We can't build roads and, we don't overall infrastructure. But the reason why nonprofit is important because even our government is broke. There's no money in the country, number one. Number two, the nonprofit sector can hit the very grassroots where the government cannot reach. Everything from sexual abuse, everything from rape, right? Everything to access to education. Now, the government can build the most beautiful educational institutions. If the population at the very grassroots is not being given the necessary preparation and empowerment that they need, these institutions will just lie there and can't do much by itself. And let's be frank, I care less how many people the government hire. You will never be able to reach right down to the bottom of our society, down to the family unit. Something as powerful as sports. Sports is changing the world in so many other countries. We don't know how to make it get its effect. And I dare you today, Anthony, you go to Liberia, you buy 10 footballs. You just go to a field and pump it and put it down. Kids, young people will gather. Automatically, you will not invite them. They will come. Music, for example. You go down today to Douala or ELV Junction, you just put down one big speaker, Anthony, you set a DJ up and start playing. The crowds will gather as if to say they had invitation 2 weeks in advance. So nonprofit is going to be important because our government is broke. It does not have the resources that it takes. We don't have the money. So nonprofit allow us to be innovative. That even in places that we don't have the money, we can still raise leaders who are innovative enough to think about how do we deal with this issue of sanitation on a community level? Because once you start to deal with it on a community level, then you are giving insights also to government and partners. Number two, most of our partners think our government is overwhelmingly corrupt. They don't want to give them money. So we need to give our partners another conduit. And the partner will say, you know what, we don't trust the Liberian government. So instead of the partners coming to America to find some kind of NGO that they will send way to Palipoke or Jopoke to go do some kind of project when they don't even know how the people are set up there, why are we not empowering our local NGOs and nonprofit leaders to rise up to the level so they can be the one when the partners say, we don't want to get the government money, they can say, oh, no, but we got great nonprofits in Liberia that we can invest in to lead this effort for us.
And so, Leo, my next question, I mean, this era of nonprofit, to go there got to be some level of preparation and training. Do you see most Liberians getting the needed education, specifically on the fundraising, their financials? Because that has been an area that we struggle a lot. Do we need training in that area if we want to venture into the nonprofit arena?
And great point, Anthony. Even in the diaspora, right? Let's not even go way to Liberia. That's the reason why all of our diaspora organizations are broke. They keep running around making flour over $2,000. Who stole the $3,000? They keep fighting each other. They keep creating all this noise because they are so broke. We don't know how to raise money. When we want to have small program, everybody put it together. Everybody get $20, $25. Let's go raise the money to the program. You can't operate like that. Fundraising does not come because you ask people for money. Fundraising comes because you give people an incentive to give to you. So I would say this is ABC, especially those of us in the diaspora. Yes, you need to ensure you got the processes in place that when $100 the people gave you and you said you are going to do something, you do it and you account for it as it should. Don't say, oh, because we raise our own money, so no problem. And let's stop the arrogance. Most of the leaders that are coming over a nonprofit, whether like your own idea you came up with, or that's something you love, probably you're not the right person to run it. Probably you're not competent to actually do it. And if you can find competent people in your society, then please go out there, find people from other communities, bring them in to help you. And sometimes it will be paying money. Anthony, I'm here. I get invited to the United States all of the time to do workshops for different organizations, not Liberians. The Haitians will bring me in. The Ghanaians will bring me in. The Nigerians, the Sierra Leoneans, the Americans will bring me in to help them think about how they can set up their organizations. And it's proven, Anthony, when I took over the Liberian Association of Canada about 3 years ago, they had $2,000 in their bank account. And we roll in all of the processes we're supposed to put in place. Anthony, guess what? In 3 years, we raised over $300,000. It's not voodoo. It's science. You were here. You saw our financial reporting and how robust it is. Because we did not have an accountant in our community, here's what we did. We went outside, brought in an external accountant who's working with our chief financial officer to start doing the financials the proper way by accounting standards. So that in the long run, our chief financial officer will already know the ropes as we continue to build that capacity. It's the only way. Unfortunately, in Liberia, everybody wants the money, but nobody wants the accountability. So I agree with you, Anthony. And those of us in the diaspora, we have an opportunity to lead in this space. When I go to Liberia, that's what I spend my time doing. Through my work in Liberia, Anthony, we're able to get the MasterCard Foundation to give us 100,000 United States dollars to experiment with a small business and training program in Liberia. It's not voodoo. After the program, we've reported our financials and the outcome, the progress report. I'm tracking the participants regularly to see how well they're doing, because in 2 to 3 years, I want to go back to MasterCard and say, can we make this program permanent, but do it even bigger on a $500,000 scale instead of $100,000, because here are the results. So I'm not blaming people for not having it, but ask for the help.
And what can the political side, because you also recognize what the political side can do and why it can't reach far enough. There's a reason you said that we should also place emphasis on the nonprofit sector. There are so many things that we can learn. So the question is, what are some of the things that the political side can learn from the nonprofit side so that they can get effective and become better examples for the young people?
Number one, accountability. Let me give you Liberia for an example. All the ministries in Liberia, what is the terms of reference? Anthony, when the president comes and say, Anthony, I want to appoint you as Minister of Information, Culture and Tourism, right? And Anthony, the first thing you need to know, what is the priority of the government when it comes to Ministry of Information, Culture and Tourism? Now, the first thing you say now with your boss, let's go to the private sector. When somebody hire you, and when they hire you on the job, Anthony, the first thing they can tell you what your measurement indicators are. If you're supposed to, let's say if you work in a bank and you are supposed to bring in 50 credit cards a month, I'm just using a practical example. They tell you, so you know exactly what to be holding you accountable for. The president appoints somebody as Minister of Information, Anthony, and they say, Jay, run the information ministry. And what are your accountability? What is your terms of reference to say, Anthony, our priority now when it comes to the Ministry of Information is to make sure the Liberia broadcasting system is back to full. We want a full-time television station running by the end of the year. We want to ensure that the Liberia broadcasting system has at least 2 24/7 programs before the year end. So Anthony got his marching orders. Anthony goes down and sit down and put in place what would it take to get the Liberia broadcasting system to have a 24/7 television station running and 2 24/7 programs running. Then he comes back to his boss, the president, and says, Mr. President, we've done the math. It's going to take us $10 million. And it's going to take us XYZ. Do you think the government is in a position to do that? Mr. President said, Anthony, I will give you what you need. And done. The year ends. Mr. President called Anthony. Anthony said, oh, Mr. President, the rinking, it was too hard, the play was leaking. So when I set up the TV station, you are fired, my brother. That means you are not capable of executing on what you committed to. You have failed the government. We can measure and say Anthony was very successful as Minister of Information because he met all of the metrics by which the government had hired him for or exceeded it in that case. So that's one thing you can borrow from the nonprofit sector, because when we raise money or when we get grants, guess what happened? The funders gave you the metrics. If you are supposed to support, like the grant I was talking about, 75 entrepreneurs in Liberia, at the end of the year, you need to report on who those 75 entrepreneurs were, what are their information, what support did you give them, and where are they? And then you are supposed to show how much money you were able to spend in that process through an audited financial report. Why are we doing that in government? Why are we just hiring people randomly and sending them to ministries to go and run without any terms of reference, any metrics by which we can measure at the end of the year to say, was the Minister of Education successful? Or was the Minister of Information successful? And the only way we can know that if we set the terms from the beginning of the year. That's one thing we can learn from the nonprofit sector. Another thing you can learn from the nonprofit sector, I will tell you, Anthony, is the ability to generate revenue, right? That's one of the problems we got in Liberia. When I say the government broke, people don't understand it. My people, $500 million that was the cost of one hospital. Not because you can see them buying $80,000 car. When I say the government broke, I mean the overall revenue stream. It's too small. It can fix healthcare, fix education, all of that stuff. That's voodoo economics. In the nonprofit sector, nobody can answer you. You're not raising, you're not getting. You have to raise the money first. And to raise the money first, you need to convince your stakeholders. So instead of the Liberian government, they're relying on taxes, which in Liberia will have a very small tax base because we're not a middle income country. The government needs to start being innovative on how can we generate more revenue outside of our tax base. I'm not talking about loans from the World Bank. I'm talking about revenues that you can generate through various options, innovative grants, or how do you call it? Autonomous agencies that have the ability to engage funders directly that don't want to go through government. The ability to set up the nonprofit sector to raise. The nonprofit sector is a major revenue generator as well.
Thank you, Leo. The emphasis here is nonprofit institution. So when you say nonprofit, define for our listeners, what are the specific institutions? Because in Liberia, when you say nonprofit, people say, oh, NGO, that's the only nonprofit institutions we know. So when you are saying nonprofit, what are the different kinds of institutions or organizations you're talking about here?
Thank you very much. Number one, nonprofit means organizations that are working and raising revenue, and their work is entirely for the benefit of social issues or the general public. Right? So when I say nonprofit, it doesn't mean you can't make profit. No, nonprofits can make profit. Where the nonprofit comes in is nobody, no shareholder or individual or the funder of the organization can take the money and say, because we wanted to raise 100,000, we raised 150, so the 150 that my profit, I can carry it. No, nonprofit means you can make as much profit as you want, but that profit just gets reinvested into the cause. So if you are supposed to support 100 people, and for 100,000, but you raise 150, then maybe you can support 125 people, for example, as a result. The first one are religious institutions. Religious institutions have been listed as nonprofit organizations, right? They don't, and what that means is your taxation, you are in a special tax bracket that you don't pay taxes in some jurisdictions. You don't pay taxes to the government at all. In fact, in some jurisdictions, the government gives you the authority for people to be tax exempt when they donate to you. What that means is if Anthony had decided to donate $2,000 to a charitable nonprofit organization, and based on Anthony's income at the end of the year, Anthony was supposed to pay $5,000 to the government in taxes because of how much money he made. And he donated $3,000, the government can give him 65% of it back, which means Anthony may end up not paying any money to the government because in the government's opinion, if you have paid that money in taxes, it will have still been used for the development of the country in a priority. So if you give it to a registered nonprofit, the government is saying no, that means we agree because it's still going to the benefit, the same place we would have been putting it. In fact, it is cheaper when you put it to the nonprofit because they don't have to go through all the expenditure government has to go through, so now only 10% of the money will be left. The nonprofits are more lean in their operation, so a lot more of the money can get down, right? Number two, social enterprises. There are a lot of businesses set up to make profit. They are selling merchandises, and they are selling products. They are nonprofits because the profits from those products are not going into their pocket. It's for a social good, right? And then we got something called unincorporated associations. Let's go to the legal side of it. Unincorporated associations are like the Grand Crew Association, for Crew people from Liberia or from Grand Crew County. Their sole purpose is to serve the interest of their membership. So they don't need to go get 501c3. They are a legal entity as long as they exist only for the sole purpose of their members. The government recognizes them. But that means You can't go have fundraiser to the general public and say everybody can get you money. No, the Grand Crew people can get you money because it's for their personal benefit. You can raise money from them. Your efforts have to be for the benefit of the Grand Crew people. The moment you start raising money outside all over the place, then you've gone outside of the perimeters of an unincorporated association. Then we got what we call charities. In the US, you will call it 501c3 jurisdiction. In Canada, we call it registered charities. I think they use the same term in the US. These ones, you've gone to the government and told the government why you are functioning, and it meets up with the government definition of what charitable purposes are. So the government say, Anthony, will give you a special status as a result. But with that status, every year you must produce audited financial reports, and our audits have to be done by an external accounting firm to ensure that you are meeting all of the regulations we have under there. Number two, your tax exempt status means when people donate to you, you can issue them receipt for them to get direct tax benefits as a result, because you are helping us generate more revenue to solve social problems in the society that the government may not be able to do effectively. That's why we are giving you that status. The regulations on those organizations is much harsher, very, very harsh. They don't fool around with them as a result of the privileges that they actually have. That's why you see somebody donated $10 million to a nonprofit association to get a tax exempt status for it. And then the other ones are registered nonprofits. So a registered nonprofit is the government said, we acknowledge you doing charitable work. We acknowledge you serving the general public. You can go out and raise money, but you haven't decided to raise yourself up to the standard. You don't have the capacity. So we will not give you any privileges to give people tax exempt status, but you can raise money. People who want to just give you money, they're not worried about all of that stuff. You still have to make a report, but your report don't have to be audited. So the rules are a bit lax, which is where most Liberian organizations are. That's why they can steal money. They can do all of this stuff because they are not required to do audited financials with the government.
All right, Leo, throughout your presentation of this series, nonprofit leadership and community building, you emphasize on the issue of mission, vision, and values, right, for nonprofit institutions. Let's contrast that with the political institutions. Let's use political parties and our government as an example. They all should have mission, vision, and values.
Correct.
Are nonprofit institutions better run because they help their members or their employees to stick to the values and missions, and compared to the political institutions? What is responsible for that when we look at these things?
Again, another very good question. First of all, I would say to you, a lot of people confuse it. A lot of people don't really know, who are running big organizations, don't know the difference between a vision, the difference between a mission, and the difference between values. So let me break that down before we come to what that means. So first of all, your vision is your big idea of how you want to see the world change. Let's say if Anthony say, no child should ever go hungry without food. That's your big vision. You're saying the world should become a place where all children got food. Your vision usually is not something you accomplish in 5 years or in 2 years or in 3 years. That's the long term. Anthony might say, I'm going to dedicate my life to ensure that in the next 30 years, we are at a place where no child should ever go hungry. I'll give you an example. Rotary International, right? The Rotary International organization dedicated one of its main visions to ensure that the world is free of polio, eradicate polio for the last almost 40 years. That's why and today they've gotten polio down to less than 20 cases in the whole world. That's your vision. So your vision is the big idea that you say, yeah, the thing I want to see happening in the world. Your mission are the things that you will do every day to get to your vision. So the short-term things you will do yearly. So your mission, for example, if you say, my mission is to make sure no child is hungry in the world, your mission then will be feeding 1 million children every year, or building 1 million farms every year purposely to feed children. So because you can account for that every year, you can say we want to build 1 million farms. What is our budget? How many countries we need to go to? Whatever. So every year you can say, so far we've hit 20 countries now where we got operating farms feeding children. No child is going hungry. So you keep going from country. So that's your mission. So your mission is the pathway to your vision, the things you do every day to accomplish your vision. Your values is the how will you do it. And our how could be, Anthony could say, okay, the way we will do the 1 million farms every year, we will go to every country and buy the biggest rice farm. there. Or we'll go to every country and pillage the forest, or we'll go to every country and seize the people land, right? Let me give you an example, like shale gas in Nigeria that you see going on, right? People complaining about them going in villages, contaminating water and stuff. That's how they've chosen. So your values are, like, for example, your values could be, we will respect the indigenous people on the land wherever we go to get farmed. We will work with them to make sure. Your value could be, we will hire only local employees, right? That's your value. Your value could be, we will be transparent of our operations. We will publish our financials every 6 months. That could be a value. Your value could be, in every 10 years, we'll make sure the local community takes ownership of the farm where we are no longer controlling is them. So your values are the things you hear people talk about with integrity and, transparency, inclusion. Those are all values. And all those say is, how will you do this work? What means will you do it in? You hear certain people tell you, say, we can't accept certain donations. Donation that come from oil money, we don't accept it. And donation from corruption, we don't accept it. Those are your values. So people may say that's the reason why nobody sticks to the vision, because people go and write these lofty goals that are impossible to accomplish, or sometimes they are possible to accomplish, but they don't know how to map. There's no mission to say how you accomplish it. Somebody just come and tell you, say, our organization is set up to make sure every young girl in Liberia has a menstrual pad to go to school, right? For example. But then when it comes to that mission, they tell you, say, every year they are hosting a necklace party to raise money. What they're raising the money for, nobody know. You said menstrual pads, right? But they say, oh, every year we'll be hosting a morning devotion so the children can pray to God. So you set a vision, but your whole mission is completely removed from the vision, which is where many Liberian and political parties are struggling. What is United Party vision? Nobody knows it. What is United Party mission? Nobody knows it. What is United Party values? What is ANC vision? What is ANC mission? I'm not talking about what the standard bearer said they would do. I'm saying the institutions. Because if you know that, Anthony, then you'll be asking the tough questions. Then when you know that, we just say, oh, Alexander Kumi stole money from somewhere to go do it. That means he's gone against the value, if their value was integrity and transparency. But they just say these things in their mouth. So everybody running around, and nobody has an idea what the vision of these political parties are. So when every new leader comes, they bring something completely different every time they get a new leader. So there's no mission, there's no vision. Everybody just running. Whatever the leader said, when the leader said today we're going to attack Capitol building, everybody will run there. And your vision was non-violence. Let's say Dr. Martin Luther King. Let me use an example of the civil rights movement. Dr. Martin Luther King's vision was achieving equality and equity and getting rid of racism through non-violent, peaceful movements. That's the reason why all the rallies, people who went to Martin Luther King rally knew that you don't go there to fight because they will kick you out. Malcolm X's vision was, if a white man kills a black man, don't let him live to kill another black man. So that's why you see all the people going to Malcolm X were more militant in that nature, because that was the vision and mission that they actually espoused.
And the political parties' mission, vision, you touch on that, but let's talk about the culture. You are here and you heard about culture within institutions. It can be a corporate organization, they have their culture that speaks to the way they're doing things, is embedded into their values. This is something every member or every employee must know and must practice, must live. Do you see that in our political institutions? Do you see any culture of, let's say, a merit system in our government? If not, what are the things that are responsible? If leadership is what the leaders are doing for which that exists?
So first of all, I'll tell you, most of our organizations don't have any established culture or modus operandi. And just so people know, somebody was saying institutions that are private, even private institutions got a vision and a mission. Go look at businesses' website. Well, it's even private businesses, because the audience needs to know, Anthony, what is it they may say you would do with your business? And how do you, there are certain people who don't shop in certain stores because the people there don't have good labor practices. So people don't go there. Certain people say, I don't buy from Walmart. There are certain people say, I don't buy from this company. But let's come to your question about culture. No, because again, part of the problem is when you establish your vision, your mission, values, and culture, that is a way of asking people to hold you accountable. So in our system in Liberia, in our political system, most people have run away from accountability. So the best they can do is to keep these organizations in this broken state that they have absolute control. When they wake up tomorrow morning, whatever they say, that the woman actually happy. I'll give you an example. When CDC were running, and when in opposition, they established themselves as the grassroots party. And for the everyday man, the Yana boys, the poor people from Nikutan, from West Point, and from these places. That's what we saw, to the point where we saw the party people using their own t-shirts when the party could not afford to buy t-shirts, doing whatever it took. Guess what? By the time they got into power, they surrounded themselves with all the elites. And the Emmanuel Shaws, the Charles Brights, all of these people. In fact, if anything, they neglected the everyday people. Now you ask me, how are they supposed to do something about everyday people when they're not educated? How long did it take for CDC to complete a vocational school on their own compound after they begin a ruling party? That was one way to cater, to disadvantaged youth, to complete a vocational institution on your compound where they can start learning skills so that tomorrow, when there's a contract for building a road, someone will know how to lay asphalt. When there's a contract for building a new hospital, some of them may be great bricklayers. Some of them may be great carpenters before you know it. So the problem with institutions in Liberia is the fear of accountability. So it's being intentional that these institutions should remain like this. How will you go hold ANC accountable or United Party accountable or CDC accountable when you say, Anthony, what is their vision and mission? We don't know it. What is the culture? So the culture becomes whatever the standard bearer or the leader embraces. When the leader likes, and battle cry, everybody operate to satisfy the leader's quest or the leader's desire. ANC, when the people look at Cummins, they think Cummins less certain kind of thing, they change the whole thing. Everybody start doing that exact same thing to make Cummins happy. They look at Boaka, when Boaka less certain kind of thing, and then sometimes when there are people in the party with big mouth, loud mouths, everybody follow them. So anything they say, so you see them jumping from one place to another with no sense of direction and no focus, simply because the leaders like it that way, because then you can control everybody all the time. You can switch your positions, you can lie, you can steal, and nobody will be able to even find out.
Leo, one thing we also see when it comes to nonprofit leadership is the issue of training. At my job, I get training yearly, even though it's the same thing I'm doing over and over. And yet it's the same training, and sometimes they advance the literature, right? They improve it. So I'm getting trained every day for the same job that I've been doing for the past 10 years. These political parties, are they conducting training? Are they training young people? Are they training some of their leaders and preparing them to take over from current leaders? Because that is a culture that we see in corporate leadership and some other institutions. We don't see that in our political institutions. Maybe government, they just send people on scholarship, go and come. But I'm not sure that there's the culture of training. What is that doing to us in the political arena?
Anthony, that's the reason why everybody running for president today over 50. Everybody in a country that the average age is between the age of 18 and 35. Everybody running for president over 50. That's the reason why we got people who've been around for the last 40 years, but today still, they are the only ones we can look up to. That is a problem. And the reason nobody does that in Liberia, they don't, because they are afraid of losing their relevance. All these years, we are still here talking today, young people are not giving the space. And people make the excuse that, young people are not prepared, as if to say it's an automatic thing. Did you provide a space for young people to be prepared? And there are a lot of young people who are actually competent and prepared. But you know what we do? Our leaders intentionally move the spotlight from on them and put it on the unprepared ones so they can use it as a way of saying young people are not prepared. Let me give you an example. All the political parties in Liberia combined say the only thing they can train our young people for to take over are the militant wing of the party. The militant wing is the most vibrant in any political party in Liberia. Think about it. They have a constant supply, of young people coming through the ranks. Every time the political parties in Liberia won't get something done, you know who they call that? The militant wing. All the time. The reason they're doing that is simple. It's because none of those young people will ever be able to compete, or none of these young people will ever rise up. Let me give you a practical example. In Canada, in the United States, in Europe, you know why young people join political parties? Because they are given access to some of the best mentors ever. They are being trained to be the next best writers, and speech writers, speakers, debaters, and policy thinkers. They are given opportunities to go to school, to learn. They're giving opportunities for training and workshop. What do we do in Liberia? We keep the young people camping on the party ground in khaki pants and boots, so that when the political leader come in, then every 2 minutes you thought they interrupt you with something insane that makes no sense. Amandra, away to Africa, away to. That's nonsense. Amandra, away to made sense. When someone like Nelson Mandela had no choice but to stand up to fight through militancy to get their freedom because they were being slaughtered in the street. Amanda Awetu made sense when colonialism was at its peak, treating black people as less than human beings across the African continent. Amanda Awetu makes no sense when a cool man from Nikuta won't go up against George Weah. Then you say Amanda Awetu to who? To your own son? We should be training people. And that's the problem we have in Liberia, the deficit. And I asked somebody this question last night. If we say to be president for Liberia, you have to be 35 years, right? Or older. Then how come we don't have an age limit on the higher side too? To say any age older than this, sorry, you can't be president. Look, Anthony, there's a place in Liberia for wise counsel. There's a place in Liberia when the young people start messing up or screwing up, that there are certain elders that can step in the fray without any fish to fry in the oil and call us to order. But when our 40-year-old have to be competing with our 80 years old, our 60-year-old, our 75-year-old them, when we all stay competing, then where is the place for wise counsel? When things break down, where do we go? And don't get me wrong, I'm not saying older people don't have a place in our democracy or in our politics. They do, but their place now is to manage the process of transition. Their place now is to ensure that as they are winding down, the competent young people around are being spotlighted. Let me give you an example. Barack Obama came to prominence, which they do in the US. Every Democratic or Republican Party convention, they pick a smart, young, uprising star to deliver the keynote that nobody knew before. Because on that night when they're nominating the candidate, the whole United States can be watching. So whoever gets the chance to deliver that keynote, they're literally introducing you to the country as one of the upcoming stars in the party. So today you see Cory Booker in the Senate. Barack Obama was one of those who delivered the keynote at the Democratic Party convention. I think it was I don't remember the year, but in the 90s or the early 2000s, I think. So since Obama delivered that keynote, he got unveiled to the United States of America as a smart young politician. Guess what? It led him to the Senate. And guess how far it led him later on? To the presidency of the United States. You saw this going Democratic the election in America. You saw the number of people on that stage. Joe Biden there were, but guess what? They had Cory Booker on that stage. They had Kamala Harris on that stage. Like you could see competent young people that even when Joe Biden leaving, any one of those competent people on the stage could emerge as a potential candidate. So no, in Liberia, we don't have a pipeline. We don't train people. That one of the biggest corruption that is going on. We think young people are only good enough to be militants.
Leo, you are right. And our political leaders, our political leaders, they need to do better. If you were, say, at an ANC event, everybody waiting for Cummings to be the focused person to speak. You go on Unity Party side, it's the same thing. Everybody waiting for Joe Walker. This is a major event. Everybody waiting for Joe Walker. They will now look for somebody. In fact, you see that they are now giving speeches on different subjects, right? This is one of the criticisms I have for the ANC. So you're having an event, you have people who are, like say the person holds a PhD, in the area of psychology. We have mental health situation. Can that person give a 15-minute speech? I was at my little brother's graduation yesterday. The graduation was organized in a way that they had so many speakers, including students, to speak on different subjects, even though they were talking about the same graduation. We don't have that. Everybody waiting for Bwaka to speak. Everybody waiting for Cummings. Everybody waiting for George Weah, and so on and so forth. I want you to speak to that. And also, finally, on the issue of the culture. The CDC is a perfect example here. Jefferson Kojina is Secretary General. How did CDC come to that conclusion to elect him? What level of preparation? Is it because he's the loudmouth? Or is it he's the one now who is the strong man who will apply these kind of tactics to scare people? Is that so? What a yardstick are they using to decide leaders, or for young people to come to prominence?
So the first thing is it's problematic that Jefferson Kennedy is the mayor. And he's the only person that could become Secretary General at the same time. It just doesn't make sense, first of all. It's going to be completely difficult for Jefferson Koji to make independent, decisions for the party, being conflicted with being the city mayor as the ruling party, because that also have implications for the party as city mayor. Then at the same time, being the one implementing the government policy as city mayor, but at the same time being one of the people on the inside to decide what positions the party take based on what is happening, right? Problematic. But number two, it just shows a little bit of selfishness, right? So what is the role for other younger people who could not get a chance to be appointed city mayor actually coming up through the ranks that could have been Secretary General, for example? So it's not even about competence directly. Your competence is one aspect, but another aspect, again, creating the space. Who doesn't know Jefferson Koji now? Jefferson Koji is a star in the CDC party. And, he's at the very top. Access to the president and all of this stuff. What happened to all the other young people down there too who should come through the same ranks like Jefferson Koji came through? That's one thing. But let me say that to you, Anthony. The only solution to this problem is for us to start forming new political parties. Me, I will say this today. People are afraid to say it. We need to start forming. We might not be afraid because we've been complaining, the political party too plenty in Liberia. No, we don't have one. We don't have one political party. We have private clubs. That's what we have. And I'm challenging you today. After George Weah presidency, right? The CDC will be a dead party. It will be a shell of itself. Didn't we see it with our NPP? And I just a few days since President Taylor left, we start hearing about NPP again. All these institutions died because they build themselves around people as their private clubs. We need to start building different parties. Anthony, if we are serious as younger people of changing the paradigm, they say, don't tell me, Anthony, show me. We'll not talk too much. We need to start setting up institutions that can show people that it can be, and we shouldn't be setting up these institutions just to win elections. That's part of the problem. No. Winning election are one aspect. But setting up institutions that can operate differently and show, and you know what can happen when you operate properly? It generates support from far beyond your shores. You start to get international support for different things. We need to start setting up a different type of political institution in Liberia. You know what happened? When all the young people then get tired, they quit CDC, right? When CDC called meeting to go sit down there, 10 measly old men and sit down there with their hand on their head. You know the party called meeting? Young people start setting up different types of institutions, and this stuff will not happen overnight. It will take time, but let's call a spade a spade. Stop joining these corrupt political parties and complaining because we got nothing to do. No, we can form new ones. And you talk about speaking on different subjects. First of all, most of the people that are at the helm of political parties are incompetent to talk about the issues. That is part of the problem. And this level of corruption and incompetence, where only the people we brought are the people we trust close in our inner cycle. So we don't select people or elect people to political parties in various positions because of their competence. Instead, it's about how connected they are. They've been around since 1980. It's about who they all know. It's about them being veterans. If you are a veteran, then play the role of a veteran. Don't be a veteran and you still won't be competing with the 40-year-olds. If you ran for a Secretary General 20 years ago, then now you're still running again for Secretary General. That is a problem. That means you have moved no further. You stay where you were 20 years ago. So we need to check on your veteran status. What's going on? I think the bold thing we need to do, Anthony, we can't always be here, like you said, you went to your brother's graduation, right? You saw all of those things. We can't want to see those things and say, well, we need to start thinking about how we start different organizations, whether it's political parties, whether it's non-for-profit institutions, even a community association. Anthony, at time we start calling them out. We can't let them escape. I call EULA all the time, not because I hate EULA. I think EULA is a great organization, the fact that it survived all these years. But at time to call it out so that it gets even better. All the Liberian associations, Anthony, you go there, yo, no hay, no tay. By the time you ask for the financial report, my brother, they come and flog you. By the time you ask for the accountability, what a report, every day they bring in a report. 5 years later, we can get it from one financial report. That voodoo, and nobody asking for the financial report because they thought you stole something. People just want to know. If you want to know any organization is run well, ask for the financial. Let me give you a typical example, then I can come to you, Anthony. So the issue of Louis Brown organizing a protest with the CPP, right? I listened to an audio from Councillor Tiawan Gonglo complaining that Louis Brown is supposed to be the type of face because of his character and blah, blah, blah. Anthony, Councillor Gonglo is an esteemed councillor. His reputation in Liberia speaks for itself. How many times he's gone to the Supreme Court either to defend people's rights, or to sue on behalf of people for their rights. Councillor Gonglo won't tell me, Louis Brown is a war criminal, as you people are claiming, right? Like many others. And they committed a crime. Why are you waiting for war crimes court? Why? A crime is a crime. Just sue them in the Liberian courts and let's see them bribe their way through the Liberian courts and set them free. No, everybody say we will not get anybody justice until war crime court come. As if to say with the court that we get in Liberia, Councillor Gongo been to the courts many times. So why Councillor Gongo coming to us to complain to us that Louis Brand is supposed to lead protest because of Louis Brand? They sue the man. Louis Brand is not a convicted criminal. Nowhere. So nobody can come to me. Is this selective nonsense that we've been tarnishing people's reputation? Even Prince Johnson is not a convicted criminal. George Bolle is not a convicted criminal. None of them. Until you can take them to court. Since we can get the war crimes court, Councillor Gongo, you were just president of the Liberia Bar Association. You are a powerful man. You're no small potato. That your comrades then there. All of y'all were together. You know each other well. Take the people to court. You always encourage us to do that. Why are you coming to us complaining this time around? You're not taking Louis Brown to court as a war criminal.
Leo, thank you. And on that note there, you are right on the side that, on the aspect that these people should be taken to the Liberian court. I think you heard about one camarade, I think the name is Conti in France, a Liberian who fought in the war, was sued by one of the institutions advocating for justice for Liberians as a result of the Civil War, sued this man in France. And they took him to court. I think they found him guilty. He should be in jail now. All right. So I think other countries have been helping Liberia using their courts, even though the war was now fought in their countries, right? So we can use our courts too. And that is a fine point that you are making. So to all of us Liberians who are accusing these individuals, there are some people that I know who parents Prince Johnson killed. Let them muster the courage and go sue Prince Johnson at the court. Let's see whether Prince Johnson will not go to court.
And there's
the video evidence, like the family of Samuel Doe. What are they waiting for to take their case to the courts in Liberia? We all know this man did this. What are we waiting for? So yeah, we can all wait for the war crime code, but the war crime code cannot be the only court system that we can use to hold these people accountable, and that is a fair point there. We'll take a short break. When we come back, we'll read comments, and then we will get your take. Beautiful gospel music there from the Global Ethnic Tribe, from all the way to southeast of Masterful Peace there. I didn't want to stop it, Leo. I know I saw you dancing right there. Folks, you are back with us. Yeah, this is the Liberian Dream hosted here by Mr. Leo Johnson. Leo, let's go to the comments. I'll put it on the screen and you read them. I'm muting myself.
All right, so we got Andrew Weah say absolutely true. They don't bill him on Capita. I think he was trying to say, I'm with you, Leo. Thank you, Andrew, for your contribution. Takwel Conan says, brother, please let me know if you guys are ready for that. Okay, I would like to join you guys. Thank you, Takwel Conan. Thank you. Well, like anything we're doing, we usually go public with it. Don't worry. Salome G. Gofan says, join Councillor Tiawon say Gongo. He's the best alternative in the 2023 presidential election. Salome, this is my commitment. Any political party that send me their audited financials for me to see it, and their plan for Liberia, I'm ready to take them serious. Until then, Councillor Gongo still got a lot of questions to answer. I haven't seen any yet, so thank you. Gonkanu VJ said this program today is informative and educative. Thank you, Gonkanu. Thank you for joining. Maisha Cheek said, going back to an earlier discussion, staying in office too long is a worldwide issue. Essentially, career politicians. The US is a great example. Mitch McConnell has held a seat since 1985. Term limits must be considered in the US and Liberia. That's another conversation for me. I'm against term limits, to be honest with you. It's arbitrary. Term limits is a way of people avoiding to strengthen political systems. Then, just because the man got 2 terms, everybody say, let's wait till the man 2 terms finish. Because if the political system is fair and transparent, and strengthening, there shouldn't be a problem. In Canada, we don't have term limits yet, but good luck with a prime minister going more than 2 terms in this country, even though we have no term limits. Maisha Cheek, so I agree with you. It's not a yes or no answer. I just think it's an interesting conversation. Maisha says AGSM is a slippery slope. However, term limits are a better argument. Maisha, nothing about AGSM. Your point, the point in the Constitution that you must be 35 to run. Then when we say put an age limit at the top two, then we call AGSM. So then move the 35 and keep it open. So it's not about AGSM, it's about biology. When you 80 years old, biology says you've declined. It's not mean I said so. Science says so. And if we accept that, while we can put old people in nursing home, then we all have accepted that. So no one's preaching ageism, and we're not saying old people in our place in our politics. We say they could do well for us as wise counsel as well. River Says Pro said you need to discuss militants on university campuses too. Absolutely, River Says Pro. But where the militants are coming from? Our university campuses should be void of militants, and we're not fighting colonialism anymore. We are debating ideas as to how to make our country better. We don't need militants on the university campus. It should be a place of exchange of ideas without militarism. So I agree with you. River says, President Leo Nupolu Johnson, do you think that ANC Global and other diaspora-based organizations should have Freedom of Information Acts? Where can we get information? They don't need their own. They already won. If ANC Global is registered, River says, Pro, you can get their information. Just write the U.S. Treasury. They oversee, I think, non-for-profit organizations in the United States. That's the thing we do. All this information, Anthony, is there, and then we can go around pretending like somebody hiding it. It's available. You can get it. And if it is in Liberia, also write the National Elections Commission. They are the custodian of that document. River says, Pro, regulation of non-profit sector is sometimes impossible. I disagree with you. River says it's very, very possible. And we in the United States, and we in Canada, yeah, we see it. They're regulated here. Does that mean people don't get through the cracks? Any sector that is regulated, people find a way to get through the cracks. But by and large, it is regulated. Batum Kula says most of the Liberian community organizations in the U.S. has run as political stepping stones for the leadership. As a result, they are not really concerned about running it as a true nonprofit. There are specific nonprofits in Liberia who need such help. Health Page Liberia, nonprofit schools, etc. Thank you, Batum, for your contributions. Wilfred Colon said, Leo, are you sure there is no money in the country and the government is broke? I believe there's money, but the corrupt leaders, my brother, $500 million. It's just because we're so poor in Liberia that when somebody drives a car that costs $60,000, we go crazy. But $500 million for 5 million people, when they devalue equal share with no cheating, each one will get $100 per year. That means your healthcare, your education, your food for the whole year are only $100. Someone said the government broke. I'm not saying they're not stealing the money that day. I'm just telling you, even if they were not stealing the money that day, we would struggle to be able to do what we want to do. Job Francis says multiple parties formation is not a solution. We're not talking about forming multiple parties. We're talking about forming proper political parties because there are none right now. This flawed argument we've made that, let us form plenty party because we're forming the same corrupt parties that all the other parties we form is just as corrupt as we're saying. Anybody who form a proper political party in Liberia will be the only one right now. Because right now, there is no political party that operates as a political party. They are all operating as these private clubs for the political leader. So we are saying, let's start forming different political parties, not just for the sake of forming one.
All right, Leo, that will do it for all the comments we have. And we will now get a closing here. And my last question to you, now that we know how effective nonprofit institutions can be and how they can contribute better to community development, what do we need to do now as a people in making that area the focus, and not government as the only focus?
Thank you, Anthony. The first thing we need to do is to identify our superstars. The same way when people put their hand out in Liberia, they say they want to run for office in politics, all of a sudden they turn honorable. Everybody fanning around them. They feel the dollars they don't want passing around here. Nobody had dollars they don't turn. The moment dollars they don't, ran for senator and became all of a sudden dollars they don't very important, and they should be. So let's start to identify our superstars who are able to help us with this knowledge. They're there. Your Mahmoud Johnson, even though Mahmoud Johnson is in business, he does a lot in the non-for-profit supporting organizations, right? Your Amma Harris, your Brenda Brewer-Moore, right? Your Alex Divine. I can go on and on. They are there, but what we've done, these young people, we look at them and say, don't want it at the better days ahead, people, man. Let's forget it. Darren Denon is senator right now, so let's fan to your house. You go to Darren Denon, people sitting online waiting for the OG, you yell. The people who have the knowledge base, let's start to promote them so that it can become the standard and example. And where support is needed, we can tap into them. Myself, who here in the diaspora, there are many other Liberians, doing excellent. What I need, Patient Maguire Noah, who just started a successful insurance company in the Philadelphia area. There are all these people around here, but these people in our eyes have been reduced to nothing. So the solution for me right now is to tap into the skill sets that we have already. That's number one. Number two, Anthony, like I keep saying it, let's start building different institutions and let's start promoting them. If I see Anthony runs an institution that is doing what needs to be done and doing it well, let's try to rally support around it. That's why I thank Focus on Liberia for coming way to Canada to cover our convention last year. It was amazing. It meant a lot to me and to all of our leaders that Focus on Liberia felt it was important to elevate, this convention, so Liberian associations can see how it's being done here and being done successfully. I think those are two key solutions. And the last one, I would say, any political party, Anthony, or any organization for that matter, political parties included, that comes to you and say they need you to join them, please ask them to send you their audited financial report, or at least their financial report, even if it's not audited. Because if you want to know if an organization is run well, look at the financials. If they cannot send you a financial report, that means they are not run well. Unless you go in there, they have agreed for you to kind of help them put the financials in place, do not join it, because you're just reinforcing this corrupt and lack of transparency that people might run organization, raise money, but they can't give the report. I think those are some practical solutions I would give, because not everybody is able to start organization, but you can find one that you can start to elevate, even if you're supporting it with $20 a month. Support it, especially if they're accountable and can do what they need to do. Support it with your money, not just your mouth. Anthony, I'll post some posts when I come from Liberia, right? I'll put a post and say, updates. We just came, the Liberian Learning Center is at window level. We need to raise $100,000 to get to this point. Here are examples of the blocks. We have hired a Liberian company, everything. Anthony, I'll get over 300 comments. Leo, you are doing so well. Leo, congratulations. Oh, this is visionary. Oh, this is how the country is supposed to go. Oh, my people, this boy, God will bless you, Papa. Now one Liberian will go and donate $20. Now one. Even though it clearly says we are calling for support. But you know what will happen? When the non-Liberians go there and comment, when I go check, you check someone else will donate $50. Someone else say, oh, Leo, please reach out to me. What can I do to support? And how can I support? It doesn't matter, $5, $10, $15, $20 at your level. No. When you put anything inspirational online as being done, Liberian people will flood it with the side. Oh, yeah, this is so amazing. Can somebody support this child? Who will support the child when you are saying start supporting them too if you agree with what they're actually doing? So Liberians, let's move from the empathetic comments. Let's come to actually supporting the things we say we believe in. Again, I'm not saying support things you don't believe in. That's the most practical solution I can say. Mahmoud Johnson over there in Liberia, when you go to Liberia, all his products are Liberian made. All his staff are Liberians. Stop to that store. Anthony, even when at $20, you get to buy one lip peanut butter lotion to put in your suitcase. And anytime I go to Liberia, I go down there, I save my money for my cosmetics. You see me right now, you see my face shining, that's so kind of oil from Mahmoud Johnson store. Anytime I go, I save my little $100 or $200. Before I leave, I go there, I shop all my little shea butter there, all my little wrap cream there, everything. When you go to my house, so Japan, Canal Fresh. Let's do that. That's a practical way to go about it.
Leo, thank you. And this is what I'm going to say, and you will then come in to close the broadcast for today. I couldn't agree with you more that we need to identify among ourselves our brothers and sisters that are doing well and elevate them. Because if we promote the good things that we are doing as a community and we support those things, then we will be, taking the steps that we need to take. The political side cannot be the only focus here. We have been focusing on that side for far too long, and I'm not sure we have gotten there yet. Now, you talk about Mahmoud Johnson. This man is, producing things in Liberia. This is made in Liberia. Don't we all see made in China? It's making China great. Well, think about it. Make in Liberia. Can we take pride in making in Liberia as Liberians? The Liberian jollof rice I heard, I continue to hear, is the best in the world. Why is it not on Wall Street? Why is it not in Hamilton somewhere? Why is somebody not coming to Leo say, hey, man, I heard about your country, your jollof rice. And that jollof rice, maybe one of our sisters will open a restaurant in Canada. maybe even in China or somewhere else. Why are we not supporting these things? And these are the things we need to support. Rallying behind the politician is all for them to get to power. When they see too many of us behind them, they think that whatever they do is okay. And so when they get there, they let us down. The city set an example. Charles Taylor was an example, even though he killed people. So we need to elevate and support things that also, improve our, there's something they call soft power, Leo. Let's look at our musicians, right? Let somebody go to Liberia because of our music. Let somebody go to Liberia because of our food. Let somebody go to Liberia because of the Liberian proposal. Can we have a proposal too? How can I contribute to that? Who in Liberia is a tailor sewing the proposal? Can I just buy one to promote that? Why do I have to go to Nigeria when we can do it in Liberia? And so that should be the focus, and I think that is what the Liberian dream is all about, and I'm happy to be proud of this, and Focus on Liberia is also proud and happy to be partnering with you on the Liberian dream. Folks, that is what I have. Leo, you're closing.
And what a perfect way to end, because the next episode of the show is going to be showcasing Liberians that are doing well. The next time you see us on here in the next 2 weeks is going to be the first episode starting with prominent Liberians that are doing well, or non-Liberians but that are doing well for the Liberian community, because there are some people who are non-Liberians, but what they've done for our communities is exceptional. So it's the right way to wrap up, Anthony, because we are making this pivot. We now talk about some of the things we should do and how we should do it. Now we need to start looking at the people who are already doing it. Instead of saying, what you do, what you not do, no. We want to start showcasing people who are already doing it, and some of them have already succeeded and are continuing to succeed. And for me, I can't wait, Anthony, till we make the first Liberian millionaire or billionaire right in Liberia. I don't say the one that come up. Right in Liberia. I think you were talking about go to Liberia, Monsieur. Bro, the type of proposal that Monsieur can sow, second to none. I'm not kidding you. When I go to Liberia, and Anthony, it's relatively affordable. For me to buy one coat suit here, like about $750. One coat suit. I'm talking about proper coat suit. $750. I'll go to Monsieur for $100. Custom made with my measurement. She can let me pick the type of cloth, the texture of the cloth that I want, everything, and tell her what kind of lining I want to go inside it for $100. But no, we prefer in Liberia, our men will spend $200 to buy Chinese coat suit where the sun can be popping on your skin. When they say $100 for a well-made proper suit, they say it's too expensive. But they can find money to buy a Chinese coat suit that catch their skin, right? Where is our priority? So I would say to you, I'm glad we are wrapping up on this note, Anthony, because our next episode, ladies and gentlemen, as we wrap up this, we're not talking about all the things we might do. Now we'll be transitioning to who are the people who are already doing it, but we haven't been putting the spotlight on them. We will start to put the spotlight on them so they can come and share with us what their experiences have been and what are some of the pieces of advice they can give us so that other people out there can start to realize that start running behind the politicians at the end of the day. There are other conduits through which we can make Liberia better. We can achieve that Liberia dream. That even the young girl in Banga, the old man in Zogowi, the papa in Ganglostan, and the young man in Plivo, so they can start to see that they don't need to be anything other than themselves to succeed. So that they can start to see that you can be in Plivo and be a proud Grebo man and make it. That you can be in Zozo and be a proud Loma girl and make it. You don't need to come to Monrovia and allow somebody to treat you like slave. We can start to provide these educational opportunities online that anybody can access it everywhere. So ladies and gentlemen, I want to thank you for the weeks that you've been with us here. It's been amazing, and I look forward to being on here with my first guest, which we will announce ahead of time. In 2 weeks, I'm looking forward to a whole different experience of looking at the people already doing the stuff and not just talking it.
We are